Welcome to Suzannes Studio. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host. Tonight is so special for me because we are celebrating my 25th anniversary of doing television. So I've been thinking about what would this show be like, and immediately I thought of my guest, Wendy Fleet. Wendy is a quintessential person, and she's had a lot of influence and so much help during my thing of 25 years. So let's meet her. Wendy, I am so glad that you're here, and you really have helped me so much over the years. You really have.
Well, I'll tell you, I have come tonight on your 25th anniversary show, specifically, deliberately, to hijack her show. She has no idea what we're going to talk about, and we are going to talk about her, because I am so, the idea that you have done 25 years of inventive television to me is just an honor to be around, to be in the presence of your feather. So I thought that what people would really enjoy, she has no idea that this was going to happen. And this very moment, hijacking her show so that we all can learn some things about that adventure. So tell me, first of all, give us a little idea about Suzanne. What was it like when you were, say, like a teenager? Were you into art? Were you from a family that was that way, or how did that sort of transpire from, 16-year-old-ish Suzanne?
Well, excuse me. At 16, I was into boys. Rather than be into me.
I know, you do have to watch out. Yeah. Suzanne is capable of being naughty, and we'll,
And, but I've always been interested in art. I've always been interested in clothes. And from the time I was a little girl, I always wanted to be different. And the other thing is
now,
that
where were you from?
I was born and lived in Chicago for the first 12 years of my life.
Interesting.
So we moved out to California because my father went into overseas in World War II. Okay. And so my uncle was in the movie business.
No kidding, how cool.
And his wife was Donna Reed. And I got a part of acting on her show.
Too cool.
So,
that is so cool.
So my real pleasure was not art. It was always
performing.
Yeah.
Performing.
Yeah. And so it was such a blessing what happened, because I always say this, it sounds Pollyanna-ish, but all of the negative things that have happened in my life have turned into positive things.
Well, let me stop you there, because I want people to know that one of the things, we'll try and touch on a lot of them tonight, but one of the things that really struck me and was a kind of life lesson thing about you. And I'm going to back up a little and tell a quick story about Hillary that kind of relates. Somebody did an interview, and she said that she could fall asleep in 1 minute. She flew around the world constantly. She was on an airplane and constant jet lag and everything when she was Secretary of State. And she said she could fall asleep in a minute, no matter the turbulence or anything. And she said, I learned, and I thought this was I just heard this like in the last week or so, and I've been using it because it's so useful. She said, I'm not the pilot, and I can't change the weather and taking my nap right on the plane. So I'll either wake up or I won't. And she said that's a very useful thing. When you're not the pilot and you can't change the weather, okay, then you make do and don't fuss, because the fuss is waste. I bring that up because those little lessons like stick with a person, and they're very useful for months or years. Your thing that I learned from you is Suzanne did wonderful sculpture-y, not sculpture's not the right word so much as
assemblage art.
but not yet. The thing is, you did the art, and then there was an earthquake, and all our art busted. And oh my God, you just want to go, holy moly, your art. I mean, to say, do you imagine the stuff you'd put your heart and soul in? It was all beautiful, it was all orderly, it was all just what it should be, and then there's a stinking whatever 5.9, 6.9, whatever the heck it was, and it's all in pieces on your floor. But what she did, which is so extraordinary, is that she took those pieces and she taught assemblage art and made the niftiest, coolest pieces that were even cooler than the. So that's when you talk about that you had tough things that then turned into something cool.
Right.
That's
And I never believed I could be on television. But I started at Foothill College, and I have to mention that my darling, darling friend Suzanne Elwell is here with us tonight, and she and I have been through a lot. Yep, we have many stories. And then when they closed Foothill College, I had brought some of my tapes over to Mountain View, and that's how I've been at KMVT ever since. I don't know what I'd do without my television show, Wendy. But I want to tell the audience, though, about you for a moment, because you're an author, you're a poet, you're a teacher. What else?
That's enough.
No, there have to be 5 things. But what I want to say, though, is that I really appreciate what you've done for me in terms of television, because you made all these years, not the first 5 years, but the rest of the time, so much more meaningful and so much easier and was so much more fun for me.
That's so cool.
And that's being such a fabulous teacher to be able to affect people like that. No, really.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. But just in terms of the time frame, so I know too, because these are not things that I ever had a chance to find out about you. So you had those early experiences. You got to be. You learned that you love performing. Now, in terms of the kind of, how do you find your guests?
Well,
I mean, you just walk down the street and say, "Hey, Joe, you'd probably be good on TV." Oh, you probably. Now, I know there's certain wickedness, but we're not going to go into your wickedness.
Don't do that. Don't tell that. I still want this image of being a nice little old lady who's prim and proper.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
well, they can see the feather and think that goes a long way.
Well, at first it was difficult because I only thought I was going to do 2 shows. And I was so crazy about doing the 2 shows, which was showing my art, painting my shoes, my clothes. And then I thought, I will interview other artists. So I did that for about a year. And you know, it's word of mouth. It really is. And it was before they had the, all the
internet-y
stuff.
kind of.
But today, the people, it's just serendipity. And I've done about 1,200 shows, so I've met a lot of people. And I'll tell you, my ego needs a lot of massaging. And I'm admitting something. Being a producer of a TV show, all one has to do when you hear about somebody. I had a couple of famous people, and I just say, I'm a producer, and would you be interested in being on my TV show? And it just gives me, a lot of, I don't know what.
Well, access is one, and also a kind of feeling of just the sway and the that you that's cool. But so tell us about a few things that have particularly struck you. Obviously you've loved them all, but just a couple of things over the years where you go, gosh, I'm really glad I got to see X or Y, or that person happened to be particularly flamboyant, or oh wait, let me tell you the other side of that. I saw years ago a Larry King Remember when he was with the
Sure.
guy?
Oh, yeah.
A wonderful interviewer, by the way. He really was good at it. And he had on Paul Newman. It was the most excruciating hour of his life, of Larry King's life. Because he would go, well, Paul, blah, 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 and Paul would go, yep. And Larry King will. And so the questions got longer. He had to. I have never seen a major league interviewer so excruciated in my life. But so that was an unexpected.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect Paul Newman to be socially helpless. But so that's the one side. How about the other side of people?
Well, one of the most interesting guests I ever had, this was at Foothill, this minister came in, and I don't know whether or not I want to mention his religion, but it was a very unpopular one, and nobody wanted to produce his show. And he had a lot of information about the Titanic. Turns out he was the nephew of his uncle, who was at the bottom of the ship, in the children's area, and the Astors took him and his sister, put them in a lifeboat, and the minister lived with the uncle. He had all of this material about the Titanic.
How fascinating.
And he became a good friend of mine, and through him, he knew Margaret Keane. Margaret Keane, the artist, and I had her on the show. So I would say that, again, just because someone didn't like his religion, and he was able, he asked me if he could talk about it, and I said, of course, because it had a lot of influence on his life.
Well,
so I would say he
that
was one of my favorites.
One of the things in terms of you in general, not just in terms of your TV show, but I think most people that I know really feel comfortable that they can be more who they are with you than they often. I think I have always felt that way, that I can just be who I am, and I have the feeling that that's something that you're really good at. Well, part of it is that your own willingness and your style and your divine flamboyance. You'll like this. When I was, I'm not good at ages, somewhere between 8 and 10-ish, sort of, maybe, I'll skip most of it, but my father was one of the original organic people, was doing stuff for Louisa Carpenter, whose friend back in the 50s was Jeannie Bankhead. They were companions, we called people back then, Jeannie Bankhead and Louisa Carpenter. And so Tallulah visited one time, and I will tell you, that lady had gear. I mean, even when I was a little child, you could recognize it, man. I'm telling you, I didn't know from movie stars, right? I mean, I was 8 or something, but I knew from gear. I mean, she just had it. It was amazing. So my cheek has been chopped by Tallulah Bankhead.
And do you remember that vividly?
Of course, because it was like the coming together of forces. I was, a little Scorpio child, who hadn't been kind of learned as well as I've come to learn how to fit in the boxes that the society expects you to fit in. I was a force of nature as a little child, and so we were a forces meeting, but in real joy, So of course, it was cool. But you would have loved her because she had style, and every now and then that's what your friend who has done a lot of your clothes and stuff. Can you imagine how wonderful it is for her to have somebody who can bring it off? I mean, it's great that she can do it, but you can bring it off.
Well, anybody could.
No, sweetie. But what you're supposed to say is thank you.
I'm going to turn the game on you because you really are my guest. because one of the reasons I like you so much is you're eccentric, like I am. And I'm much more comfortable around eccentric people. But I use the word as a positive.
Oh, totally.
You know, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you become the way you are?
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon because you pay a lot of costs for being eccentric. People would often say to me, well, how come you don't go into politics? Because I have been a political sort of expert for a long time, and I do a lot of stuff. And it's because I don't, there's certain boxes I won't fit in. I won't say I'm a Christian because I'm a, you know, earth-loving, I never was a hippie. I never thought love was free, but I always was a, you know, I think we're all earthlings. I'm a planet person. And when I saw the planet from the outside the first time, you and I are old enough where we hadn't seen that iconic picture of the planet. And then I heard an astronaut was asked, this is about 40 years ago, I'm not good at time, 40 years ago or something. He said, well, what was it like when you were out there looking at the planet? And he said, when I was in space looking back at the planet Earth, the thing that struck me was there aren't any lines on it. I just couldn't believe. Suddenly, I became an Earth person. I mean, I instantly knew in that moment. Of course, there are not any lines on it. There are no Americans or English people or Germans or fill in the bloody blanks. I mean, we're all Earthlings, and I got it. There's certain places in your life, Suzanne, where everything changes from maybe even a word. In that case, it was like a sentence. Changed my whole life. And so I have been, that's an example of being like life as Braille, full body Braille. You're walking through a language, Earth, the whole experience is a language, that you're 3D Braille that you're walking through. And so I am always, as a child, from when I was a child, paying attention for the one word or the one turn or the one sentence that where you can really learn something new and change, which is when you know, like, it allowed me to be what you're calling eccentric, in that I don't have a clue what I'm about to learn. So you have to be eccentric to be really alive, because if you're not, you're in somebody else's box. And related to that, this week, I've had two real shocks. I had a shock where I had thought that I'm very democratic, I'm very, whatever. And I thought, well, the Tea Party and all those people have all this ugly junk. And then with the Bernie people I'm on Twitter a lot, and they're so ugly. You can't, thugly. I had to coin a word for it, thugly, for God's sake. And so that was a big shock to me, because I'd had this prejudice that Democrats were more like golden retrievers and the Republicans were like pit bulls, and that we were nicer. Anyway, so that was a shock. And the other one was I'd had this, all these us's and them's have got to go. And I had this thing with the idea that they, in various Middle Eastern countries where you are required by the patriarchy to walk around in a stinking blue tent, I thought, wow, that's, that's something, we're better than that. And then I thought this week, this is why I'm one of the reasons I'm wearing my work overalls to come here tonight, because I knew it would be okay with you, that we have blue tents in America too, except they're more various. But I can't go run for president in my overalls. It's balderdash, man. I mean, it's just another version of blue tent. And that was a pretty big shock to me, because I've been feeling, like holier than thou. about the they, and you got to watch out because a they almost always comes back to bite you. You know, like you're talking about your nice friend who had a certain religion and was worried about it. You're allowing people that whatever their eccentricities are is a really important quality that I wish, you know, if we could model it for people, that would be cool.
But do you like people, though, that are so opposite of you, like the Republicans?
No, Dick Cheney, I would direct him over an open manhole.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't mean that. I don't want harm to anybody. What I do with Dick Cheney, I'll tell you what I do, and I think this is okay. My voodoo qualities. You'll like this story. I used to put hexes on people when I was in school. And things, marvelous, wonderful, weird things would happen. Who knew, right? And so, but, oh, Wendy, put a hex on whatever. And something amazing always happened. Now, I did that, and it was fun because weird junk would happen until I was probably about 19-ish, I don't know, somewhere in there. My beau at the time and I were in Vermont and went across the border to New York, and we were waiting for a friend. And there was this kid riding along just a city street on a bicycle. And, oh, Wendy, put a hex. So I put a hex on the kid. He blew off the bicycle, crashed into the plate glass window. And I go, oh, my God, I never did it again. Oh, I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So, but, Dick Cheney, I'm getting very close to wishing him very bad itches in very awkward places. Now, I think that's okay.
That's okay.
Because, I mean, I don't really want to, like, have him be maimed or hurt. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
because I'm better than that. But itches, Dick, look out. Anyway.
Hey, what about Trump?
Well,
I feel that way about Trump.
Trump's a very great
He's
danger.
very, very scary.
Very great danger.
But we shouldn't talk about politics. Except it's so nice to be with somebody that's on the same page.
Yeah, that's always.
So do you feel that your personality, your whole demeanor sets you aside? It does set you, we know it sets you aside, but does that make you uncomfortable at all?
Oh, gosh, no.
It
I mean,
doesn't.
well, nothing makes me uncomfortable because you want to know why I can't be uncomfortable?
Why?
Okay. Well, how much time do we, where are we on time?
Just 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, so I have to make it really quick. I thought to honor the earth, I would count the hair on the top of my cat's head. She's long departed, but as you know, like the people in Tibet do these things, they go on their hands and knees to the sacred mountain. Well, I thought, okay, well, I couldn't do it. You know, I couldn't do it. I mean, I couldn't do it. And then I was walking down a street, and there was a little ginkgo tree, and ginkgo trees are very cool. And I thought, well, maybe I could count, and to do honor to the, you know, galaxy, I could count the leaves on the ginkgo tree. Couldn't do it. And then I thought, I was standing there, I remember exactly where I was on the street in Mountain View in the same little tree. And so what I realized was the universe counts every leaf on every tree in all the forests and all the countries in all the world, and every leaf is always in the right place every morning and every night. And my brain exploded and imploded at the same time. I lost my ego entirely because what can I do? I mean, my good golly, Miss Molly. I mean, you know, whenever I start to get some ego thing, I just think of the leaves and I just, you know, it's all, so all I can do is adore. I can only adore what is. All of it, from your feather, you know, to your sequins. But those are cool, but the dirt, the dust, all of it is equally fabulous. So when you're immersed in fabulous, I mean, yes, things are tough and things happen and there are Trumps and there are whatevers, but still, I mean, the basic fabulousness, the radiance, Suzanne, it's always there. It's as there as is the air. You're always immersed in radiance. So no, I can't feel uncomfortable.
Oh, that is such a wonderful, I would call it a conclusion, because I've been very nervous about this show, except why would I be nervous with you on it? But it's so important, and you are such an extraordinary person, really, and I just treasure our friendship.
I do too.
I really do, Wendy.
Yeah.
We don't see each other all the time. But
it's like whenever we meet each other, we've always known each other, and we always, you know, it's just, it is. I feel so lucky, sweetie.
And I just so appreciate you being here. And the only thing is, a lot of people don't know Suzanne Elwell, but she's here, and I just wanted her to be on the show with us, but she said no. But she's here with us anyway. And I'm so grateful to her,
do we have any time before we're done? I mean, can you say how you met each other? Or
no, we met at Foothill College. She was working there, and I started producing, and of course, as well as Suzanne Elwell and Wendy, my crew, I just have to just tell you guys that I really, really do care about you so much. And we've been together for such a long time, and it's voluntary. And maybe we'll do 2 Chef Chews a year. How about that? Anyway, and I'm just so grateful to KMVT. I'm just so happy that it's been 25 years, and God knows it won't be another 25 years. But anyway, I want to thank our audience for watching. And you know what? This is so true. I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye. Mwah, mwah.